Welcome back to the FanSpeak Network and another edition of Sibling Showdown. I'm your host, Meg. You can follow me on Twitter at Megs08DFS. And I'm, of course, joined by my sibling. I'm joined by my brother, Steve. You could follow him at SteveOSpeak. We are talking about the showdown between the New York Giants and the San Francisco 49ers. Steve, how are you doing tonight? And are you ready to talk showdown, which I think might be a bit of a blowout?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Unfortunately, I know Amazon was hoping for some good Thursday games this year, and Vikings made it interesting last week. Not sure if we'll get that run out this week. This is not looking great with Saquon and Giants missing some key defensive guys, and Andrew Thomas Giants missing some key defensive guys as well as Andrew Thomas as well. So
he's already been ruled out.
Yeah, they ruled out like 4 or 5 guys today.
Okay, so to speak to Steve's point, Saquon Barkley has obviously got the injury picked up the injury on Sunday, is ruled out. You said Andrew Thomas is out. Who are the defensive players that have been ruled out?
I know a couple defensive linemen.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot on the names.
Let me check there.
That's okay.
I will butcher the name if I have to do it off the top of my head. So I will quickly go to our friends at Our Lads and check the depth chart.
Okay, awesome. And as you're doing that, I just want to bring up that the spread for this game is obviously currently set at minus 10.5. 49ers total is set at 44. So Vegas thinks it's going to be a blowout. We think it's going to be a blowout. You know, it has been very uninspiring, unimpressive for the Giants so far this season. Week 1, they just got waxed by the Cowboys. It was just an awful display of football on Sunday Night Football. And then they start against the Cardinals and go down, 3 scores, and then have to come back, get a last-second field goal to beat the Arizona Cardinals. Not a great start for the Giants. I see this going more like week 1 and being like the Cowboys. The Cowboys defense is obviously the 49ers defense is very similar to the Cowboys defense. It's an elite defense that's going to cause Daniel Jones problems. Now he doesn't have his best weapon in Saquon Barkley and his offensive lineman in Andrew Thomas. That is trouble. I see a blowout, and that's for showdown. And we'll talk about props and stuff on tomorrow's live betting show. So be sure to check out the NFL betting card at 3:00. We'll talk about props, and that makes that a little difficult. But, as far as showdown, God, it makes you like a lot of 5-1s. How do you handle this from just an overview? And then we'll jump over and look at Run the Sims and what they're seeing.
First, let me just go back to the injuries. So it was Azeez Ojulari, their top pass rusher. And Micah McFadden is not officially ruled out, but he's listed as questionable, has not really practiced. Some of the beat reporters thought that it could be very tough for him to go. Wan'Dale Robinson was also kind of listed the same way. So they're going to be thin at receiver, thin obviously at running back. And then the other guy who's out is actually Ben Bredesen, the guard they brought over from the Ravens, who was starting. So they're down 2 starting offensive linemen, down Saquon. This is not what you want facing the 49ers defense.
The 49ers defense, exactly. This is scary. Well, so how do you see it from before we go over to Run the Sims? How do you see it as like and how do you see this game playing out? And then do you just like really focus on kind of 5-1s type builds? I mean, I think that's what a lot of people in the field is going to probably be doing. Maybe a 4-2 49ers, but I mean, I just don't see, how the Giants make this competitive. And then who will be like the running back? How do you see the running back situation playing out for the Giants?
Yeah. So, I think there will obviously be a lot of 5-1s, but I do think there can be some 4-2s, just because, particularly if you do go Daniel Jones, because we know his rushing side of things. And then if, you take especially one of his cheaper pass catchers, and hope you're right there, that guy can definitely pay off on a handful of catches. And if one gets into the end zone, whether it's a Slayton, a Hyatt, somebody like that, a Paris Campbell. I mean, those guys are all fairly cheaply priced. So, I could see a 4-2 build kind of working from that perspective. But I think from a captain perspective, I think it's definitely going to be very heavily weighted on the 49ers. And speaking of the running backs, they definitely announced that Matt Breida would be the starter, but it'd be kind of a committee approach. What that means is, I think, a fair guess. They have the rookie Eric Gray. Yeah, wasn't massively impressive in the preseason in camp. I mean, he's a 5th-round rookie. I think Gary Brightwell, he's been, he was with the team last year as well.
Right.
So he knows the offense a bit, but more of a special team guy. He'll get some work, but, I don't know if anyone's ever thought that this is a guy that you want to see getting 20, 25% of the work, 30% of the work. So, Matt Breida, look, people say a lot of things about Matt Breida. Breida's always had explosiveness. He's just always had bad injury luck. This is not a good offense to do it against, or a good defense to do it against, especially when you're missing 2 offensive linemen.
Right.
But, Matt Breida started with the 49ers. In some opportunities in the past, he's produced. But, yeah, it's a tough go, and they're just likely to be down. So,
does he have a lot of does he have a lot of pass catching chops? Does he have that in his bag?
I mean, he's done it some. It's never been, he was with teams like the 49ers, the Dolphins, and Giants, never with like super high volume passing teams, or teams that would utilize him, with the Bills for a year. And that just wasn't his role. Okay. So, yeah, it's tough to say, but I mean, I think they got to utilize him that way. But I'm guessing more we'll just see, a few dump offs, a few screens, but
you don't see him getting a high volume passing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's bring over Run the Sims. Click the wrong button. Sorry, that's not what my producing skills are rough right now. So let's bring over Run the Sims, and Run the Sims is a tool that you can use to put in your own projections. Basically, they have the inputs already built in. I ran with the inputs that they have, but you could put in the score, the usage, the run rate, the pace, all those kind of things, run the Sims, and then get the optimal results. And so that's what we're just going to take a look at. So check out Run the Sims if you'd like to do it on your own. Obviously, we just use this as a starting point. And to no surprise, obviously, Christian McCaffrey is the highest total rate and the highest total captain rate. That is a shock to no one. And then the next highest total captain rate is actually Daniel Jones, probably just obviously the pure volume of the situation. And then Brock Purdy, then Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is still questionable, correct? At this point? Or did he get ruled in?
Yeah. I don't think he's been officially ruled in. At least I haven't seen anything. And obviously them being West Coast, I don't know if they've officially released their full injury report. Yeah. At the point of that.
So that's something we need to pay attention to, because obviously if Brandon Ayuk's in, he's a consideration. If he's out, that boosts Debo and McCaffrey.
And it also would open up a cheaper receiver in like Juwan Jennings that we could have a little bit more confidence in playing.
Right. Right. So right now, just in running the Sims, he is rolled in. So I just want to make that clear. Pay attention to that news. We are taping this. If you watch it on Thursday, we were taping this on Wednesday evening. So, so he is a top captain, as well as, of course, Debo Samuel. And then farther down, you've got guys like, the Kittle, Darren Waller, that kind of stuff. But total captain rate in order is McCaffrey, Purdy, Jones, Debo, Ayuk, the kicker from the 49ers, which if you're doing an onslaught, I think that makes perfect sense. Kittle, Breida, who's not priced cheap. I mean, they priced him up purposely. He was already priced up knowing that Saquon would probably be out. Kittle, Waller, the Giants kicker, Gano. And then you get into like the Slayton, Paris Campbell, 49. I'm surprised 49ers defense isn't more, but they're 5,800 as well. So that is probably part of the reason why. So if value opens up, I think that they it'll be interesting to see what their total ownership ends up being. It's hard not to want to click them, to be quite honest. And then there is some talk, coach speak, that they may get Elijah Mitchell more work, especially if there's a blowout. You could for sure see that happening. So while I'm bringing over DraftKings, and then we'll run just build a lineup together. While I'm doing that, why don't you talk about your favorite captains, and then we'll talk through captains a little bit, flex, values, fades.
Yeah. So my favorite captains are definitely Christian McCaffrey. We'll get into the whole Elijah Mitchell and maybe McCaffrey taking a little bit more of a backseat, but I just think McCaffrey's still McCaffrey. Going back to the Debo, well, we saw how he was used last week. With Ayuk being a little banged up, even if I explain, I think the same thing's going to happen here. And if Ayuk's not playing, I think Debo is just going to be a major force. But next, I would say 49ers defense, honestly. We just have another situation where it's an elite defense, a very banged up offensive line. Their Giants are without not only their best offensive player, but their best offensive player by a mile. I mean, even, I don't want to, like the Browns losing Nick Chubb is not as big of a loss as the Giants missing Barkley. I mean, for a singular game, because Amari Cooper is a better receiver than anything the Giants have. And Amari Cooper and Njoku, Elijah Moore, those guys are more talented than what the Giants are putting out there at the receiver tight end. Waller, those are solid guys, but they're just not on the same level.
Yeah, long term, it's a massive loss for the.
But we're talking like in a game,
in a singular game, and I get what you're saying. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And same with like what we saw Eckler going down. Like Chargers just go to we'll throw to our elite receivers. Well, that's not the case here. Giants, their offense is entirely run through Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and to the point about ownership, really quick, I checked Run the Sims ownership right now on Wednesday afternoon, early evening. It's projected at 4% owned in the captain. Now that could be coming in higher, and it might come in higher if like an Ayuk was rolled out, and then you got like access to a value receiver or something like that. So definitely check ownership wherever you check your ownership at Thursday, and check what they're saying about ownership. But yeah, if it's coming in low owned, I like. If it was chalk, I don't know that defense is so volatile despite any situation. But boy, the 49ers are just set to feast. The 49ers defense is just absolutely set to feast. Any contrarian captains? I mean, we'll see what, again, the ownership for 49ers, but any other contrarian captains?
And then this isn't contrarian, but I will say I do understand the Daniel Jones at captain, because it could just all come through him. Like
he could hold
Giants
all the
might only score 2 touchdowns, but it could be 2 Daniel Jones touchdown runs. And and he might have 3 turnovers, but if he puts up 250 passing yards and 80 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, he's your captain.
Yeah, I mean, he got 6 points against the Cowboys, 34 points. I mean, I don't think it's going to be what it was against Arizona, but I'm more worried it could be what it was against the Cowboys, where they are just flatlined. But I could, like, you're saying like him just getting some kind of garbage, something,
between garbage, and if he's the one that's getting it, and it's such a blowout where McCaffrey and Debo and Purdy are sitting and they're not doing much in the second half, and they just aren't getting their, whether it's him getting a backdoor 300-yard bonus, whether it's him getting a second rushing touchdown where McCaffrey got one early, and McCaffrey is an 80-yard day and a rushing touchdown, and he gets 2 rushing touchdowns, he might outscore McCaffrey on just rushing points alone in that kind of situation. So it's just, there's ways where it is just him. It's like we'd say this about any rushing quarterback, where sometimes they just have to play total hero ball, and even against elite defenses. So so I don't love it, and I think he will be highly owned in it, but there is that situation where he's just ends up being that guy. So in terms of a contrarian captain outside of the defense, there's nothing I really love. Probably the only thing that I would even tend to say would be something like a George Kittle on the 49ers side. And this is more if Ayuk's ruled out.
I think he's going to be chalky if Ayuk's ruled out, because right now, again, projections, see what they are tomorrow. Right now, he's projected 33 to own and to 8% in the captain. So I don't think he's going to be a contrarian captain. I think contrarian captains on this slate are going to be like the really secondary receivers for the Giants, like a Slayton will be a contrarian captain.
Slayton would be the one that I'd say. I think people will look at, Hodgins got the touchdown last week, but Slayton actually got more targets. He's more of a deeper threat, not like Jalen Hyatt, who gets 2 targets, 2 catches, 80 yards, but 6 targets, 60 yards, 3 catches.
3 for 62, 6 targets. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of those are going to break. Like I think he leads his team in targets. He just has good snap share, has the most experience with Daniel Jones. And probably when Daniel Jones is under pressure is going to be the guy that Jones is looking towards. So that would just be the one guy that it's like he maybe has, 7 catches, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns, and breaks the slate.
Gets the most volume. Yeah, I'd say if I was doing a 4-2, because the running backs are not priced down, you're not getting any discount on even, Breida or, even Gary Brightwell's 5,000. I mean, come on. And
we don't even know Brightwell will be the number 2.
Right. Gray, the rookie, is cheap. He's 1,400, but you're not getting any discount on that. So, if I did do a 4-2, like Slayton is definitely a tempting option just from that like volume. Hope he gets some kind of. I hope he can catch something, even though the Giants
are /big play.
Yeah, right.
He gives you the best of both worlds. Like, Harris Campbell had 6 targets last week, but he got 20 yards. Slayton got 6 targets, got 60 yards.
Right, exactly. I don't see many, honestly, massive like stands. And looking at early ownership, again, look at ownership tomorrow and pay attention to the Brandon Ayuk news, because that's going to be key. I don't see anybody that's super chalky. The high owned guys are high owned for a reason right now. It's McCaffrey, Purdy, Jones, Debo. I'm not going to make any major fades, and I'm assuming based on what you said, you're not either, right?
Yeah, I think Purdy's price is a little tough. Maybe the game's just so ugly that he still gets there, but
it could be like a raw points play if it's ugly, and and they just win like whatever. I'm just making stuff up, but if they win, 24-3, 27-3, or 27-6 or something like that, and he's a part of, 2 of the touchdowns, you might just need it on a raw point standpoint.
Yeah. But that just feels like the only way, just because it doesn't feel like, and look, he hasn't really had to do it yet this year. He's looked great. His efficiency is efficient numbers are fantastic. He even had the rushing touchdown last week. But it's like we saw what Dak did week 1 in this kind of blowout game against the Giants.
That's a great point. What did he get? He barely cracked 6 points or something, because he didn't have to.
He didn't 140 yards.
He didn't have to do anything. It was, especially when you're getting these short fields, and that was, again, we'll talk about tomorrow on the live show, 3:00 NFL betting card. But that's what makes me nervous about really any of the 49ers props. The short fields, how is Purdy, how is even McCaffrey, who's so efficient, and then even especially if they want to like scale back his usage, especially on a game where they probably don't need him. If they've got these constantly short fields, even Pollard that first game, like you said, Dak didn't have to throw for many yards. Pollard still got a ton of usage, got the 2 touchdowns, but I think just had around 82 yards because they have such short fields, so I think that's could be a very
play the fourth quarter.
And didn't need to play the fourth quarter. So I think a lot of those concerns are similar for this. So I think we talked through a lot of the like important points on this. And again, you really need to see the Ayuk situation to see like where you want to kind of lean more towards, if you want to lead more towards like Debo and McCaffrey, or if you want to punt off and try like a Jennings or play more Kittle, that kind of stuff. I probably tend to, I don't know, if you really think they'll start to use Elijah Mitchell, maybe you do like McCaffrey, Mitchell, Debo, something like that in the defense or something along those lines. But why don't we build a lineup? But how should we build the lineup is the question. Are we building it with like a 5-1 in mind, a 4-2 in mind? Are we building it with like, it could be unique, like Daniel Jones captain and all 49ers, or Daniel Jones captain and maybe Slayton if it fits, something like that. But, or of course a 49ers onslaught. Do you want to build with the defense and the captain? How do you want to build it? Because there's a lot of ways you can go with it, but honestly, whatever ways, I say there's a lot of ways you can go with it, but for me, it's going to be all 5-1-4-2 San Francisco. I can tell you that right now. And probably most likely the only Giants, maybe if I was getting really weird in the large field, I'd do Slayton in the captain, but the only Giants I'd do in the captain is Daniel Jones. And that's for, just that, like, again, raw points, volume that he needs to, and maybe gets 2 touchdowns. And I wouldn't even mind doing him naked and Jones and then like 5 49ers. So how do you want to build not a full lineup, but a partial lineup?
So just one thing that I will say just before we get into it is I love Graham Gano, but he's off to a bad start this year. He's missed 2 field goals already.
Yeah, usually he's a solid kicker for me.
Yeah, and also just if they're down, he did kick the game winner last week. But if they're down, they're not going to be taking field goals. They're going to have to go for it on 4th down. So
that's a good point.
I would avoid. I think Moody is still in play among the kickers, but I think Graham Gano, just that he's missed a couple already, even though
Moody put up 14 points in the first 2 games just because of the 49ers efficiency on offense. Yeah. So that's definitely something considering.
They're always in scoring position.
Yeah. So even if they're not converting, so that's really, really interesting as well. So no, that's a great point on Gano. And of course, we didn't talk about is Waller. And of course, Waller really got there last week in the whole come from behind win against the Cardinals, ended up getting 6 receptions, 8 targets, 76 yards. But he's certainly in play. But again, if you fear that it's a total blowout, I think for me, it's just Daniel Jones and like a cheaper receiver, because Waller's priced in the flex at 7,400. And then, Slayton get the discount down to like 5,600. So I don't know. I mean, I guess if you can afford it, and you think Waller's just going to be the target monster in garbage time, then I see it, but I would probably lean more towards paying down for a second Giants player. Go ahead.
The other thing I'll mention there is the 49ers, going back to last year, also they're better against tight ends than receivers, honestly. They're very athletic safeties, very athletic linebackers.
Yeah.
They can, they'll give up something every now and then, and Waller can, when he's healthy, he can be a weapon for sure. And I don't think he's going to go catchless, but just given his price, I think I'd rather take a shot at one of those receivers. I mean,
I agree.
Typically Hodgins, Slayton, and Campbell, just from a volume standpoint, it could be Hyatt from just a couple
bombs,
Hail Marys type thing, and maybe you get lucky. I think Hyatt,
what percent of routes is Hyatt running? I mean, I know he's had these massive splash plays, but did he run more routes than last week? I was about to
I looked at the number and I cannot remember exactly. I know that
I'll pull it up while you're looking. So anyways, what captain build? And I'll pull that number up.
I think we should go with the 49ers defensive captain build. I think that.
I think it's going to be a bloodbath. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just, and the other thing that we didn't truly highlight is it's in San Francisco. Giants are going, having to travel on the short week. With all these injuries.
Did they stay out west or did they come back to New?
I don't believe so. I need to double check that, but I don't think so.
Okay. Well, do you want to just plug in the 2 volume plays of Daniel Jones and Christian McCaffrey, and then we decide on one other spot? Because I think those would both be pretty scary fades in this slate.
Yeah.
Okay. So that leaves you with 49ers, McCaffrey, Daniel Jones leaves you with 5,900. Where would you take it from there? And then we'll kind of leave it blank to people to fill out.
So I will say, I'm going to put in Darius Slayton, and I just think he could be the guy that really benefits, again, given his experience with Daniel Jones. They've been, together, Daniel Jones' entire career. And, I just think that, I think they got to rely on him a little bit in this situation. And, there's a lot of ways you can go with it. Whether you,
he got 5 targets even in that game where it was an absolute disaster. Still caught.
Oh yeah.
It was only 3 for 15, really bad, but he still got 5 targets, 6 targets. Like you said, he's the most targeted player on the team. So that leaves you 6,100, and I think that's really interesting.
You can do a lot of things with that. Whether you pay down for something and pay up for the other piece, or get to mid, kind of cheaper mid pieces. There's just some different ways you can play with it from that perspective.
Yeah, I think it definitely gives you options for sure. Where I would probably want to play around with. The only other thing, let me just do one pivot. I do like that. And again, I think that gives you options that you could go up high and then someone down, probably below in and around the kickers or something like that. And then, or you could, like you said, target that mid range, and that would probably be pretty unique. But if you took out Slayton and you did kind of do with the thought of a 5-1, I was just curious what Purdy left you with. Okay. So if you did 49ers, McCaffrey, 2 quarterbacks, you're left with 4,200. So you'd have to get a little more creative there as far as salary is concerned, as far as, how you want to build it. What is Elijah Mitchell priced at? Just at
2,400.
Okay. Yeah. So I think there's again, different ways you could go with that. So, but this, as you can see, just automatically takes Debo out of the picture, which is scary too. Quite honestly, I would probably prioritize in this situation Debo over Purdy, price considered, even though Purdy's only 800 more than Debo. So we'll put Slayton in for now as like our placeholder here in the lineup. But that leaves you 6,100 and leaves you a lot of options. So any final thoughts before we get out of here? I tried to pull over the data, but I'll look that up later as far as the routes run, because that's the kind of stuff you need to look at, usage. And that's what I'm trying to, look at early every week to look at for Sunday. And, of course, the Thursday's game is usage and percent of routes run, targets per routes run, that kind of stuff. So I will look that up for all the Giants receivers. But I think this is a good, interesting, starting point to a build and gives you a lot of options. Again, I think we're all in line. I think the field is going to be very in line with how they think this game's going to go. So, trying to be unique. That's why I wouldn't mind even getting weird and doing like a Daniel Jones captain or doing something that is, a little more, that the combos wouldn't be necessarily as high. I do think Slayton could make it more unique because let's see, at this point, and again, check ownership tomorrow. He's only projected for around 23% ownership. But again, check ownership projections tomorrow because that's when they're the most accurate. So any final thoughts, and then we will get out of here.
Yeah. So just from for me, I think the key to this is kind of locking in Daniel Jones, whether it's captain or in the flex. I just think without Barkley, it's just going to be tough. Like you need to have somebody from the Giants, and you probably can't take a 0. So you're probably going to want Daniel Jones. I know he had a terrible week 1, but you just look at his fantasy scores, going back last year, and he was just such a floor play for almost every game last year that kind of score in a showdown could be huge and more likely in the flex. And so I think that's key on that side. And then on the 49er side, I think just get it. I really like the defense. I like Moody.
Yeah, like the kicker.
One or two of their big time playmakers. Is kind of the way to go. Maybe Purdy if you feel it. It's kind of more through the air than on the ground, but it's that kind of thing you need to decide.
Yep, absolutely. Well, yeah, I can't say we're going to get a fun game to watch, guys, for Thursday night, but there's still a lot of money up top. Yeah. So be sure to, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like the episode before you get out of here. Also, be sure to check out all our articles on fanspeak.com. We have multiple articles every week. For Daily Fantasy, we have the NFL betting card, the NFL treasure map of how our guys Spread and Tyler get to their bets each week and lead you there. And then, of course, the NFL betting card is updated for Thursday games, Sunday, Monday. And then, of course, our NFL betting card show on Thursday at 3. Watch that anytime you want to help you with bets throughout the week. So be sure to check out our content on fanspeak.com. Thank you so much for joining us and good luck for Thursday night football.